I'll talk first about the differences between the genders. There are certainly some physiological differences between the genders you need to be aware of, and for your own training as well as if you're a personal trainer for clients. I'll talk about body fat differences. I'll talk about the differences in muscle mass between males and females, where they store body fat and where we store body fat as guys. Difference in twitch, fast twitch and slow twitch between the genders and what that does to your program design. I'll then talk about the strength differences, what's the difference between males and females regarding strength. What happens to women when they do weights? I'm going to talk about what happens to them when they do weights, in terms of bone responses, in terms of muscle responses, in terms of fat responses, and also, interesting enough, in terms of self-concept, because there are some really good improvements in self-esteem and self-concept with weight training. We'll talk about injury prevention concerns, what ladies need to be concerned about to reduce their risk of injury when they start weight training program. And then I'll talk about the program design, what you have to put in your training programs to get the best results for women. So let's get into it. Now, this was a quote that came back in 1986 from a guy named Olaf Astrand, one of the first exercise physiologists. He said that we're back to the evolutionary fact that we're not born equal, which is pretty straight. For the ultimate survival of an offspring, it's certainly an advantage that female and male counterparts are at least partly different. So obviously there are some gender differences between males and females. What are some of them? Now, there are some physiological differences between the genders you need to be aware of. First one's about body fat amount. Now, obviously you didn't turn up this course to learn that females have more body fat than males, but they do. That's a physiological difference between the genders. So there's a difference in body fat. Interesting though, it's often about the distribution of body fat. Females typically store more body fat centrally. Sorry, the other way around. Males store more body fat centrally. So males tend to store body fat, we know, here, so around the midsection area. Females tend to have a more peripheral distribution. So their body fat you'll see with females is more around the arms and certainly around the lower parts of the legs. So there are some differences in where they store that sort of body fat. Now, that's interesting too if you are a personal trainer or you are having training at the moment and you use skin fold calipers as your body fat test. Now, a lot of people go and have their skin fold tested. If that's the case, be very aware because females store more body fat internally than men. So if you're on a training program and you're losing fat nicely, you might do a skin fold test that doesn't show any improvement. You think, well, what's really happening? You'll actually be able to lose body fat from internally that won't make a difference to your skin fold measurements. Okay, so just be aware about where we store body fat. Interesting enough too, females store that body fat, again, around the lower part of their body and peripherally, largely in response to estrogen. So there's a definite change in females post-menopause. You might notice females post-menopause tend to develop a more masculine body fat distribution. So they tend to lose a bit of this from here and they tend to gain a bit more around the midsection. Again, that's largely to do with estrogen. So there are some hormones at play here that have a real effect on what happens to females' body fat. In terms of the other thing, physiological differences, the body fat that is, because it's higher in females, be very aware if you're using swimming as a fat loss modality. Now, my concern for females, a couple of reasons. Number one is because they have more body fat, they are more buoyant. So females, because they have more body fat, stay on the top of the water better, which means when they're swimming, they don't have to exert as much energy to keep their head out of the water. So in terms of energy expenditure, it's a lot easier for a woman to stay on top of the water and cruise along. She won't expend as much energy as a male will. Is it mine? That's Phil. So be aware of that. Also be careful too with swimming. I'm not a massive fan if you're into fat loss. I know this isn't a fat loss course, but if you're into fat loss for your clients or for yourself, swimming has a couple of problems as a fat loss modality.